Chapter 4. The Doctor's House. The sky had turned a deep blue now, almost black. At the edge shone a streak of brilliant crimson. In the house of the village, one window and then another began to glow with a flickering yellow light. They walked and walked. Each time they came to a doorway or a gate in a wall or stairs leading upward. Lena hoped this might be the house. Back in Amber, where she'd had the job of messenger, she'd been a tireless runner. Running was her greatest joy. Tonight it was hard just to walk. She was so tired her feet felt like bricks. But Dr. Hester walked on, with the boy trotting ahead of her sometimes and sometimes lagging behind to stare at Lena and Miss Myrtle and Poppy until they came to the outer edge of the village. There, standing somewhat apart, was a low-roofed house, except for a glimmer of light on its two windows reflected from the reddening sky. It was in darkness, huddled beneath a great, brooding plant the shape of a huge mushroom. "Is that a pine tree?" Lena asked the doctor. "Oak tree," the doctor said. So Lena understood that tree must mean all big plants, and they came in different kinds. A path led to a wooden gate with which the doctor opened. They came into a shadowy leaf-littered courtyard paved with uneven bricks. On the three sides were the three wings of the house, like a square-cornered U. The eaves of the roof sloped down to form a walkway all around. In the failing light, Lena could just see the courtyard was crowded with plants, some growing in the ground and some in pots of all sizes. Vines wound up the columns of the walkway and crawled along the edge of the roof. "Come inside," the doctor said. She led the way to a door in the central part of the house. She and the boy went in. Lena stopped just inside the doorway, and Miss Myrtle came up behind her, Poppy in her arms. They stood peering into a gloom. There was an odd pungent smell like mushroom or leaf mold, only sharper. The doctor disappeared for a moment, and when she came back, she held the lit candle. She moved around the room, lighting more. The 2 candles, 3 candles, 4, until a wavery light filled the central part of the room. The corners remained in darkness. Come in, the doctor said impatiently. Lena moved forward. She felt grip beneath the soles of her shoes and the tickle of dust in her nose. She was in a long, low room with clutter everywhere. Clothes draped over the backs of armchairs, a shoe on a saggy couch, a plate with some bits of food on it, sitting on the windowsill. At one end of the room were 2 doors, both of them closed. At the back, a stairway rose into a dark square hole in the ceiling. At the other end of the room, in the corner, was an open door leading Lena guessed to the kitchen. Beside this doorway was a kind of hollow in the wall, framed by stones and containing some sticks and scraps of paper. The doctor stooped down before this hollow place and held her candle to the sticks and paper there. In a moment, a flame leaped up. It was a bigger flame than Lena had ever seen, like a terrible orange hand reaching up and out. Lena's heart knocked hard against her ribs. She stepped backwards, bumping into Miss Myrtle. They stood staring, Miss Myrtle with a hand clutching Lena's shoulder. The doctor turned around and saw them. "What's the matter?" she said. Lena couldn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on the flames which leaped higher and crackled. Miss Myrtle tried to answer. She inclined her head toward the end of the room where the first flame had become a dozen flames, licking upward, sending out flashes of orange light. "Oh," said the doctor, "the fire? You're not used to fire." Miss Myrtle managed to smile apologetically. Lena just stared. "It's just in the fireplace," the doctor said. Not at all dangerous. In Amber, there was never fire unless there was danger. Someone's electric wiring had frayed and ignited, or a pot holder had fallen on a stove's electric burner. The only fire Lena had seen that wasn't dangerous was a tiny flame of a candle. This fire scared her. In the window glass, reflections glimmered. The windows were set so deeply into the wall that there was a ledge at the bottom wide enough to sit on. The boy, Torrent, hiked himself up on one of these ledges and sat there, kicking his feet against the cabinet to set in the wall below it. Afraid of fire, he said in a low, scornful voice. Come in, the doctor said. You can sit over there, if you like. She pointed to some chairs at the other end of the room, far from the fire. So that was where Lena and Miss Myrtle sat. Poppy woke up enough to give a weak wail, and then she slumped into Miss Myrtle's lap. This will likely be the last fire of the season, anyway, said the doctor. Nights will be getting warmer soon. We won't need one. A creak sounded from outside, and then rapid footsteps. Someone pounding on the door. Lena clutched Miss Myrtle's hand, but the doctor only sighed and moved to answer the knock. Oh, it's you, William, she said. What do you need? Some of that ointment, said a man's voice. I need it right now. My wife cut her hand. It's bleeding all over. Come in, I'll get it. The doctor said, and she went into another room and rummaged around while the man stood shyly just inside the door, looking out of the corners of his eyes at Lena and Miss Myrtle. The doctor brought him his jar of ointment, and he went away. No more than 10 minutes later, another knock came, this time from a young woman who wanted some willow bark medicine for her sister, who had a pounding headache again. The doctor rattled around in the other room. She came out with a small bottle, and the woman hurried off with it. Are you the only doctor here, Miss Myrtle inquired. Yes, said Dr. Hester. His never-ending job. She suddenly looked worried. Did I give William the right jar? Yes. The one on the third shelf. I'm sure I did. She gave a frazzled sigh. Now, let's tend to your little girl. Put her head here. She patted the couch that stood against the wall and wrap her in this. She retrieved a knitted blanket that had fallen on the floor, gave it a shake, and handed it to Miss Myrtle. I'll give her a swallow of medicine. Poppy accepted 2 spoonfuls of medicine. It was something reddish that Dr. Hester poured into a jar and spit out the third, whimpering. Lena's heart ached to see Poppy so sick. Most of the time, Poppy was a ball of energy, so quick and curious you never knew what she'd do next. She might chew up a valuable document, for instance, or trot off onto exploring of her own at exactly the wrong moment. Now she was limp and pale, like a little sprout that hadn't been watered. Miss Myrtle laid her on the bed. Lena sat by her and stroked her hair, and quite soon she went to sleep. The doctor disappeared into the kitchen, and Torrin climbed the stairs and vanished into the room above. All at once, Lena was overcome with tiredness. The disorderly house, the unfriendly boy, the fire, all of it was strange and disturbing, and Poppy was terribly sick, which worried Lena so much that she felt a little sick herself. She sat down by Miss Myrtle and laid her head on Miss Myrtle's lap. She was vaguely aware of the clattering and chopping noise coming from the kitchen, and then she dozed off into a confusing dream of lights and shadows. Dinner! Dinner? Shouted Torrin. Lena bolted upright, and he laughed. Have you heard of food? He said. Have you heard of eating? They sat at the table, all of them, but Poppy, and the doctor ladled out something from a big bowl. Lena wasn't sure what it was. Cold potatoes, she thought, and something else. She ate it because she was hungry, but when she had eaten, she suddenly became so tired again that she could hardly move. Quite tasty, said Miss Myrtle. Thank you. Well, said the doctor. Certainly. You're welcome. She started to stand up, then sat down again, looking flustered. Maybe you'd like to read or walk around, or we're a bit tired, said Miss Myrtle. Perhaps we could go to bed. Dr. Hester's face brightened. Bed, yes, she said, standing up. Of course, why didn't I? Let's see. Where will we put you? She looked around as if an extra bed might be hidden in the mess. The loft, I suppose? No, cried Torrin. That's my room. It's the only place with 2 beds, said Dr. Hester, picking up a candle. She made her way through the clutter to the stairway. They'll touch my things and Casper's things, cried Torrin. Don't be silly, said Dr. Hester, starting up the stairs. But where will I sleep, Torrin wailed. In the medicine room, said Dr. Hester. Tears had appeared in Torrin's eyes, but the doctor didn't notice. She disappeared into the loft, and for a few minutes, Lena heard thumps and scrapes from above. Come on up, Dr. Hester called. Lena climbed the stairs, and Miss Myrtle came after carrying Poppy. By the light of the doctor's candle, Lena saw 2 beds under a sloping ceiling. There was a chest at the foot of each bed. Some clothes hung from the hooks, and some boxes were neatly lined up on the sill of one window. 2 beds, but 3 of you, said the doctor, frowning. We could, We could put the baby... It's all right, Lena said. She'll sleep with me. And a few minutes later, she was in bed, Poppy in the crook of her arm, covers drawn over them. Good night, good night, good night, Miss Myrtle, said from the other bed. Miss Myrtle said from the other bed, and the candle was blown out and the room went dark. But not as dark as the rooms in Ember at night. Lena could still see a faint gray rectangle where the window was, because of the lights in the sky, the silver circle, and the bright pinpoints. What are they called, she wondered, and who is Casper? And how can the doctor stand to have that huge, awful fire right there on the floor of her house? Everything was so the opposite. Everything here was the opposite of Ember. Ember was dark and cold. This place was bright and hot. Ember was orderly. This place was disorderly. In Ember, everything was familiar to her. Here, everything was strange. Will I learn to like it here? She wondered. Will I ever feel at home? She held Poppy tight against her and listened to her snuffy breathing for a long time before she fell asleep.